Now, I want you to be in the 5% club for whitetails and for whitetail properties. And I think, the bad thing about this, and I'll tell you about what the 5% club means, but it's 5% because 19 out of 20 parcels are just average. And you can count on that. And so much so that when we go to client properties and design properties for clients, you can count on the neighbors being 19 out of 20 properties, meaning that they're just doing things average. You can take advantage of that. It doesn't matter where you're at. It doesn't matter if you're in Buffalo County, Wisconsin, or you're Pike County, Illinois, some of these big whitetail areas. Just because someone has money, buys big property, expensive property, great area, puts a lot into habitat and hunting, that they're going to have great hunting and they're doing it right. And so you can take advantage of that, and you really can, because there's a reason that a lot of times people are in the 19 out of 20, the 95% club instead of the 5% club. And we'll go through and talk about this. I want you to be in the 5% club, and that's what all these hunting strategies and this entire channel is about when it comes to any type of habitat management concept. You can build great food plots, but it's not a great food plot if it's in the wrong location, or if you're spooking deer every time you go out in it, and you're hunting your property poorly. You're not. It's not good. You can never overcome the lack of hunting strategy with great habitat features or great food. One parcel attracts 5% in a given neighborhood. Typically, one parcel attracts 5% of the 24-hour movement of a mature buck. We're talking bucks here because does and fawns can get bumped around, pushed around. They can take lower quality food. It doesn't really matter. They're going to their home bodies. They have just a fraction of the home range of mature bucks. So when you look at an entire neighborhood of 20 parcels, there's going to be one parcel typically that sticks out that attracts the daylight movement of a 24-hour period. And what I mean by that, that's only 5% of the movement. A mature buck expresses 95% of his home range during darkness. There's a big difference between his daylight movement, and that's why you can be a parcel that you see occasional mature bucks during the middle of the night, or during the night, during the dark, but you can't grade your property on that, hoping that it's just a pass-through parcel, and he just happens to come through during the rut. You don't want to be a rut-only parcel. Instead, be that parcel that attracts only 5% of a mature buck's movement, which is that 5% during the daylight. That's what's really important. So how do you do that? You have to be a 5% hunter, meaning you have to hunt differently. There's a lot of fives here. We'll end up with an 80, but there's a lot of fives here, but you have to be different than all the other hunters. You have to look at this stand as a morning stand, this one's an afternoon stand. You have to pick your days to hunt. You have to know when the best times are to hunt. You can't blow out stands ahead of time before the best times. And a good property should be able to be hunted all season long. If you have to wait to the rut to kill a mature buck, then something's wrong on the property, and that's the average hunter. You can't be the average hunter. It doesn't matter if you want consistency on public land or if you want consistency on private land. You have to do something different than everybody else, and that means you have to join the 5% club, because most people are doing it average, and you want to be the one that's doing it great. Well, what does that mean? You have to have good food, good cover for a private land parcel, obviously, but you have to have great hunting. And the point is, you could have great food, great cover, but if you only hunt average, then you're going to have average results at best. You're just going to be like everyone else. There's a lot of people, Dylan and I go to all the time. We were just talking about another video, how many people spend so much time and effort on their properties only to have a poor hunting efficiency or poor hunting parcels. And that's very common with so many different, and these are people that have the money to spend, and they work really hard on their properties. But you can have average food, average cover, but if you have great hunting strategy blended in, then you're going to have a really good parcel. I'll talk about food. The food has to be available during the fall, October, November, December. The quality of your food on your parcel is not graded in any way by what you have in June, July, and August, or April, May, and June, whatever 3 months you want to think of outside of the hunting season. And then what's really cool is if you have great food, or at least good food, it's going to last the entire hunting season. So a food that lasts the entire hunting season trumps food that's great for October and part of November. You want food that's going to be great throughout the entire hunting season, or at least great compared to everything else in the neighborhood. You want the most volume. And what's really cool about that is it's almost impossible for you to have food starting middle of September, early September, great October, November, December food source, and then it ends January 1st. So what's really cool is when you fill that predictably and reliably during the hunting season, then you're going to have food that lasts in January, February, March, especially January, February. And what's that mean? Well, that means you're taking care of the deer at the worst time of the year for the local habitat, the natural habitat, and for the conditions they have to go through on a yearly basis. And that's a really good thing. You want to be able to contribute during the wintertime, but if you put all your eggs in the wrong time of the year, then you're not going to have that, and you're not going to be that 5% property, and you're not going to be a 5% parcel. So it's the same with cover. You can have average cover, even pull timber, not that great a cover, average for browse, but if it's unpressured and you put it next to good food that lasts, not great food, but good food, and then you hunt it well, you're going to have a good parcel. So what's all that mean when this takes place, when you have all these fives, when you're in that 5% club, then you join the 80% club. And that's where you can't have a good herd, you can't have a good property without having a great hunt. Because if you say you have a great hunt, but you do everything poor and you have great, poor food, then maybe you're just hunting during the rut and you rely on those few days, and that's your rut hunt. And you have a good hunt every year because you're taking advantage of bucks coming through. But even then, you're going to always be at a lesser, the ability, the potential of your property or the bucks that it could cough up would be a 1 out of 10, and you're getting a solid 4 every single year, 5 out of 10 every year, but you're not still getting that 10 out of 10. So when you join the 80% club and you do all this correctly, that means that you shoot 80% of the mature bucks in the neighborhood over a 5 or 10 year period. In fact, I'll just give you a little insight. Jen and I we lost a hunting lease in Wisconsin, and we have a couple of videos we're actually shooting about that today, and we'll find a new property. We don't exactly know where that new property is going to be yet, but when we do, we expect to join the 80% club in the very first year. This is not something that takes a long time, because if you apply a good hunting strategy, you have adequate food, adequate cover. Just like when we bought this property in Minnesota, we expected to shoot the best bucks in the neighborhood that very first year, and we did. And we expect that to do that anywhere. And you can even apply, it's different because you're not creating the food, creating the cover, but you can have that same success on public land if you're hunting different than everyone else, and you're looking for those adequate cover areas, adequate food source areas. Might be a clear cut on public land, might be diversity of habitat. And if you're hunting it correctly and you're pulling yourself away from hunting pressure and you're getting out by yourself, finding those pockets, which we do in Pennsylvania every year, for example, then you can have a great hunt. But when you have private land, it's not uncommon for you to do it right with habitat, do it right with the way you hunt it, with your food sources, and to join that 80% club where you shoot and you look at all the surrounding properties. And I'll go back to a neighbor that we had last year, and where they texted and just said they've never seen it. They've hunted here for 3 years and they've never seen it, where they have these bucks in October, September, that earlier part of the season, and then we're shooting them in October, November, and we're seeing them regularly at that time. He's never seen it anywhere else. Well, that person's not developing that 5% property, that 5% hunt, and I would openly help them without charge, because I look at it like I like it when my neighbors are doing the same thing that we are, because it builds a better buck herd in the entire neighborhood. It's never that you look at it like, boy, I don't want to tell anybody my secrets around here. I want them to learn and do it right, and then we're all better off for it. So being in the 80% club is a really cool thing. And I feel like I'll say I have a neighbor over here, Chad Garteski, that does a really good job. And he's usually shooting one of the better bucks in the area every single year. And it's crazy because he's doing it differently a half mile away than we are. Then he has his own nucleus of daylight movement of mature bucks that focus on his land for that 5% of their movement. And then we have a nucleus of bucks over here and a core group of bucks, and they rarely overlap. We get about 15-20% overlap of those bucks, even though we're only a half mile apart, because he's doing it right over there and we're trying to do it right over here. and that really helps. And again, you can both be part of that 80% club, even though you're only a half mile away. It's just very rare that you get multiple people doing that in the same neighborhood, and you can take full advantage of that. So I hope you can join the 5% club. I hope that makes sense of how that equates into an 80% club down here. And rest assured, when we find our new lease in Wisconsin or new property to hunt, if we buy it, lease it, wherever, we're going to expect and make those changes of food, cover, and security to allow us to join the 80% club just this year. And a large part will come. And a large reason for that is we're focusing on these fives and being in that 5% club first. Hey guys, thanks for watching the video all the way to the end. I really want to remind you about our food plot seed company, Pure Wildlife Blends. I even have clients that don't realize we have our company, but the food plot seed blends are flying off the shelves, and that's a great thing, and that always happens this time of year. I encourage you to check out everything. Again, purewildlifeblends.com, links in the description. But at the same time, we always carry inventory. So if you are the type that puts it off to the last minute, order it in July, we'll have it. But in the meantime, check out purewildlifeblends.com. We have a lot of different seed blends, pollinator blends, wildlife blends, switchgrass, everything that you need to plant great food plots and great wildlife plantings this season.